You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
Packers Talk.
Welcome to the Packers Weekly Podcast, part of PackersTalk.com network. I'm your host, Miles Teddick, joined by your co-host, Tim Hamilton. We are diehard Packer fans, just love talking about the Pack. We are not getting distracted by other national sports media things. We are talking about real football, sticking to the top topics around the Pack every week, breaking down games during the season and sorting through all the drama, draft, dreams of the offseason. If y'all want to support the pod, please spike that like button for us, give us a follow on all the socials, and then jump on over to YouTube, type in Packers Talk Network, hit search, find our channel, hit subscribe, and we will celebrate and love you for it. Does us a great deal of help, and, you know, hanging out with us once a week, talk a Pack, might help you too. You just never know. Might be a nice little exchange there. But yeah, so tonight we have some news. We've got some news. We got some combine review to do. We got some things to get into here. So, new special teams coordinator. Many were rooting for this to happen. The context around it, I think there's a lot to talk about. I think there's a lot to think about, a lot to wonder about. But obviously, there's some studs out there at the combine this week as well. I think there's good news for Packers fans here. Even though we may not have a first-round pick, there is a lot of value coming out in this draft, and I think the Packers have a shot at getting some really impressive players, some impressive athletes. So we're going to dive into who those might be, take a fly over some free agency news. There are some new guys out on the market. Might want to discuss, there's some potential out there now. But first, let's take care of some business. Our show is once again sponsored by Wisconsin's own Ticket King. For over 30 years, Ticket King has been providing Packers tickets to Packers fans, as well as Bucks tickets, Brewers tickets, Summerfest tickets, all the tickets. You can find them on the web at theticketking.com or visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. And remember, support all those local businesses, Wisconsin and otherwise. Tim, good evening, sir. How we doing? Did you get to enjoy the draft or the combine? Excuse me.
Yeah, I did. Admittedly, I didn't watch the whole thing. It's, a little tedious there watching the guys run around in their underwear, basically running straight lines and stuff like that.
It's good background TV, like you just put it on and let it run. And every now and then you're like, dang, look at that guy run.
Yeah. And you look up and, whoa, a 250 some pound dude just ran a 4.4. That's incredible. Like I think we take it for granted how incredibly athletic these guys are and how fast they are. Like, some of the scores and some of the players who stood out, and we're going to talk about them and highlight them tonight. It's incredible how athletic they are, and you don't even realize it. And then they do these tests and they're running 4.4s and they're, it's an edge rusher or defensive lineman or something like that. And you're like, we almost normalize it. It's like, that ain't normal. Like, that's a special athlete there. No matter what their NFL career turns out to be, they're special athletes. So, yeah, it's always interesting. Saw a lot of clips online of it, probably more than actually sitting down and watching it, player by player.
That's where you get the impactful stuff. But there's the really important one. You got to get through 20 of these average guys to get the impressive one, but it works.
And there were a lot of standouts. The one thing I don't have a lot of disappointments as far as individual players go or anything like that. But it's kind of, I think over the last few years, there's not as many players that do the workouts now. Like you see players skip their 40s, or they skip the agility drills, or they skip, the short shuttles or the 3 cones and stuff like that. Like, you don't get as much participation. I feel like it's slipping. So is that something that's going to change, or is that like kind of where we're at and we're just going to have to deal with this over time? Because those numbers are important, especially for the Packers, because they look at that kind of stuff. Like, historically, we have the benchmarks and the thresholds for what they're looking for. And when you have fewer and fewer guys that do everything, it kind of impacts, like, for us as fans, like trying to figure out who they're looking at, who they're targeting. But like, I'm sure it impacts them as well for getting like full athletic profiles on these guys. So yeah, it's just one thing you notice, like fewer and fewer guys are doing all the drills now. And I'm sure that's agent driven. It's, players not wanting to make a mistake and hurt their standing in any way possible. Like, I get it, but um, it just kind of stinks. And I wonder if, like, at some point it's going to get to the stage where, like, there's hardly anybody doing it, so they got to make some kind of major changes as far as, like, the drills that they're asking these guys to do, or something like that, to get more participation. But it just, and that's the only kind of disappointment. But it's still really cool to see some of these numbers that come out, and now we can really get the athletic scores and narrow down the list of people who could be Packers draft picks.
Yeah, and we weren't even really planning on talking much about like the the way the combine is run and the participation and all that. But I did catch something, and I can't remember exactly where I heard this, or maybe I read it, but there was a story about a couple years ago. Some guys had to run their 40s at the combine after doing other workouts or doing like other things where their legs were just shot. And it's just like, oh, well, that's different. Yeah, like I would probably not be happy about that either. If you're having to be tested on such an important thing, I mean, we can all sit here and debate how important 40s and all the things are, but they're important, right? I mean, and it may not be important across the board, but there are some that prioritize those things. We famously saw Al Davis. If you ran a fast 40, man, that guy was going to grab you as fast as he could. And there's others like that, right? Maybe not as famously, but there's definitely scouts and GMs out there that covet those traits that you're going to be tested for. And if you're going to be tested under less than ideal circumstances, like maybe you've had to wait all day, or you haven't eaten, whatever it is, like there's just all sorts of things you could probably imagine having to deal with, and then having to do that. Like, yeah, all right, I'd feel a certain way about that. And you know what we're seeing is the trend of guys go on and do these things at their pro day where they have control. And we've heard that in the past, and that didn't really mean a whole lot to me before. It's like, where they guys, these guys have control over their, what they do and all that. After hearing, how the combine can go, that makes a lot of sense to me. It's like, oh wow, yeah. I mean, if I'm going to try to put my best foot forward, I want control over the environment, man. Like, I want to make sure that I'm fresh. I want to make sure that I'm well fueled. I want to make sure that, I'm not going and squatting my record squat max right before I got to run a 40, like something like that. So I can understand that. I do think we'll get to a place where you probably have some sort of contractual obligation in order to accept your invite to the scouting combine. So you have to commit to, doing X number of drills, maybe 100% of them or whatever it is. I could certainly see that, because it is, at some point I started looking through, and you see like a guy, like all he did was jump his vert, or something like that. And you're like, well, what's going on here, and the interviews are very important too. I get that. I think what it'll take is you'll have to see, and I think you're seeing some of it. You'll have to see guys that truly benefit from the performance at the combine, right? And like Nick Emanwari last year, I think he's one of them that did. He was
Yeah.
kind of just a guy, and then he jumped out at the combine. You're like, dang, now his film makes a lot more sense. All right, I see this. And there's those guys almost every year, it seems like. So you're gonna have to, these guys are making business decisions with their agents, right? Like, okay, you go in there, you run a bad 40, could cost you a couple draft spots, which is, the equivalent of a couple million. It's like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, you don't want to make a couple $1 million mistake by running a bad 40. And maybe that's true that would, is the cost. Maybe it's not. I mean, these guys know more than we do, the agents and their players. But yeah, I think that it's a weird calculated risk where you're just like, you're here to do something, man. You're here to be tested. You're here to perform. You're here to, really for a large scale job interview, right? It's kind of like a job fair almost. But if, and this is kind of the old school in me, if you're not going to participate, why are you there? And like, what kind of competitor are you? Like, are you just a business guy? And that's fine. You'll probably be a good player. But if I really covet that competitiveness, that speaks, right? Like, you're going to pass up an opportunity to show me what you can do and to compete against the best just because you might not do as well as you think. Like, that's kind of weak, man. I would at least try to shoot holes in that in the interview process if I was a coach or a scout. But I think there's a little bit of that going on. I was disappointed the number of corners that didn't run the 40. The list of them was long. I'm sure some of them injury stuff, but there were a lot of guys that they just said that they're going to run it at their pro day. So that was disappointing. But again, when you hear those circumstances where guys are kind of put through less than ideal situations, it's like, I don't think I would want to have such an important job interview after, whatever I was put through the whole day. Again, I don't know. It's a lot of speculation, but I've heard a lot of stories about the combine, whether it's the interviews or the length of the day or, all that kind of stuff that can wear on you. And if you're running, you're 40 at night, that kind of stinks. But anyway, yeah, man. Let's put a pin in the combine because we have a new coach.
We'll get there. Yeah.
And we were going to cover this first anyway, because look, the season ended, and I think many of us were convinced that Richie B was out, right? That it was sort of a foregone conclusion that he would be gone. Not going to get rid of him during the middle of the season, but it felt like that was going to happen. It felt like that was the inevitable thing. And then we got crickets. It's like, oh, he's still here. Interesting. And then you start to think like, all right, well, he's getting some good positive feedback from the league. Oh, he's a really highly respected coach. Players love him, all that kind of stuff. You hear those things. And then, we tossed around the idea because, Mike Wall shouts out, hey, if this has been a problem that exists across multiple coordinators, maybe it's not a coordinator problem. So, we toss around that idea. Maybe this isn't a coordinator problem. Maybe this is an organizational philosophical problem that even someone who's thought of as the best special teams coordinator in the league, or at least one of them, is incapable of fixing, which is rather discouraging if that's true. Let's hope that's not true. And now, after I don't know, I'd say we somewhat made peace with the fact that Rich Bisaccia was going to be around again. He's gone. He steps down. It's seemingly a surprise to the organization, according to Goot. And he's almost immediately out at Clemson. So here we are. We have a new special teams coordinator. So everybody got what they wanted. I don't know if you got it how you wanted it. And I don't know if you got who you wanted. But you got what you wanted, right?
Yeah. I think everybody wanted, or I shouldn't say everybody, most people were hoping for a change at special teams coordinator. But this is a real weird one. The timing was very strange and very late in the coaching carousel. By the time Rich stepped aside, everybody else had a special teams coordinator hired. And there were a lot of them that moved around because there were 10 head coaching jobs that changed. So he takes that long to decide to resign. Doesn't leave a great pool of candidates for LaFleur, but LaFleur can take his time. And, there's nobody he's competing with at that point to hire a special teams coordinator, but the pool isn't very good of candidates. And then Rich, the news today on Monday is that he's going to end up being Clemson's special teams coordinator. So he went from being the assistant head coach and special teams coordinator, and apparently one of the highest paid special teams coordinators in the NFL with the Packers. So now he's going to college, where I believe he hasn't coached in college since the 80s. To be
what a time, dude! What a time to go back! Wow,
to go to Clemson. Right? And special teams coordinators in college aren't very highly thought of. I would imagine it's going to be a pay cut. I can't imagine. If you're one of the highest paid special teams coordinators in the NFL, I can't imagine that Clemson's going to be paying you more or the same. Maybe they are. Maybe they're going to,
those NIL
set the bar now. Big, who knows? But I can't imagine. I don't know what. It doesn't seem like he has any ties to that university. Like, he coached there a long, long, long time ago. But he doesn't have ties to Dabo Swinney. It's just a weird situation. So he wasn't fired. He didn't retire, but he had this other job lined up. And apparently, and I think it was Tom Silverstein wrote the article on JS Online, was like, he was on vacation. I'm sure the other coaches, end of the season, they get a little vacation. He was on vacation. He comes back. He's in the building for a few days. And then, yeah, I'm going to leave. I'm stepping aside. I'm resigning. Catches LaFleur off guard. Goody said he was caught off guard by it. Like, they didn't expect this to happen. And, like, he has another job lined up. at Clemson, of all places. It's a really strange situation. I don't know if we'll ever get a true answer from Bisaccia. I'm interested to hear what LaFleur says whenever he talks again, maybe, at the owners' meetings at the end of the month where he usually talks. But like something's going on there to cause him to say, like, I don't want to be in Green Bay anymore, where I was assistant head coach. Like he had like a lot of influence on the culture. However we want to judge that, but like he had a lot of say and a lot of influence with LaFleur as his kind of right-hand man, and they valued him no matter what we as Packers fans think of him. They did value him, both
They did.
personnel, with Goody and Matt LaFleur, to then say, I'm going to give that up and I'm going to go be special teams coordinator in college and coach these, 18 to 22-year-olds. Not to mention for a coach who's maybe on the hot seat at Clemson. And your head coach in Green Bay just signed an extension. It's just a very odd situation. And I don't know if Rich finally got up, said like, enough of this. Like, I don't want to take the criticism in Green Bay, though I don't think he probably really cares about it, but maybe it does affect him. I don't know if he said, you know what, these guys just don't see special teams the way I do, which that might be the situation, right? Like we've talked about that. Like this isn't just a Rich Bisaccia issue or just a Matt LaFleur issue or just a Brian Gutekunst. Like this is going back like Ted Thompson years, McCarthy years, where they just have poor special teams. Like it's an organizational thing. So maybe he just got fed up with that and like they don't see it the same way I do. They don't prioritize special teams overall or certain areas of special teams. And he just said, I'm done with it. And I want to go somewhere else. I don't know, but it's a really odd situation for him to step down to take a job in college now. Like especially he's 64, 65 years old, like to go back to college at this point, like it's weird. And I think there's a lot more beneath the surface there that we don't know. So it'll be interesting if anything ever comes out about it. I'm not going to hold my breath that we'll ever really get like the true reasoning behind it, but maybe we'll get some things. Maybe somebody will report on it. It's weird. That brings us to the new special teams coach, who's Cam McCord. Mixed bag. I can't say I'm excited about him. I can't say I'm like disappointed that that's who they hired.
Seems like the general consensus is this sort of lukewarm. I guess he's not Bisaccia. We'll see.
Right. He's not Bisaccia. They didn't have a whole lot of guys that they could go to. There were some special teams coordinators who were good who changed teams, but like they were already gone and on new teams or stayed where they were at with the coaching changes by the time Bisaccia stepped down. So like I can't blame LaFleur for not talking to those guys. He couldn't. Accord with when he was the coordinator in New England, they had his first year, they had great special teams, right? Like, and whatever rankings, there's tons of rankings. So there's PFF, there's DVOA, there's EPA, there's Rick Gosling, who used to do the rankings that everybody always went by. Like whoever he went by, his first year, they were one of the top special teams units. And then after that, it got worse. So like the second year, they were kind of middle of the pack. And then the last 2 years, they weren't very good, depending on the rankings. Now I saw Rick Gosling's rankings kind of had them like NFL average. Okay, I'll take NFL average on Green Bay.
Yeah.
But there's more context to that. Like Belichick definitely, he was one of the head coaches who always prioritized special teams like that. He was huge on that. So like the fact that Accord came up through that, I think is good, is really good that he learned it through Belichick. By the end, I think everything in New England had kind of fallen apart with Belichick. Like, so it was a roster. It was like, it was time for Belichick to be gone, and he was. So I don't know how much you can blame the special teams performance on Accord for the last year or two there in New England, but it wasn't great. Then he goes to the Giants, and he was their assistant special teams coach for 2 years, and they kind of had mixed results too. But it's one of like
assistant. I mean, I don't know how much you're affecting that at all.
So I think LaFleur looked at it, and the guys he was interviewing, this guy had the most experience as a coordinator. Like
he would have been the special teams coordinator when the Patriots came to Green Bay during that joint practice and training camp, right? Because he was under Belichick.
Yeah, because he was under Belichick. Yeah,
I think that was Belichick's last year.
It might have
Um,
been, yeah, or his second,
so that
year before his
that
last.
could be
So
one where, LaFleur got a little bit of a closer look at a guy like that, got to know him a little bit better.
yeah,
You're there for a couple of days, little intimate environment. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
maybe you
and
get that assessment there, and you're like, yeah, I like this guy. I don't know. I'm trying to look at the optimistic picture here.
yeah, and like Belichick, like I said, he's always like he emphasized special teams more than most coaches, maybe any coach in the NFL. Like he was big on special teams and how they were coached, and they always kept special teams players. I mean, Matthew Slater was there forever, and it was a big part of it. It wasn't just lip service like a lot of coaches talk about. The three phases. Like it was true. So he kind of he had a couple years as the assistant special teams coach, and then Joe Judge, who was the special teams coach, got a head coaching job with the Giants, and so he was bumped up. McCord was bumped up to being the head special teams coach. So he had good leadership there and guys that could teach him. Like I know Joe Judge turned out to be a bad head coach, but he was a good special teams coordinator. Belichick was as well. So like he's got that background, and I think that's probably appealing to LaFleur. I think maybe LaFleur is scared off by like he had Drayton before that, Mo Drayton, and he was a first time coordinator, and Menanga was a first time coordinator in the NFL. Like he probably doesn't want to have a first time guy in that role in that seat, so he went with somebody that has experience. How's it going to play out? I mean, I'd like to be optimistic and say it's going to get better, but and this isn't even I'm not trying to judge Accord, the hiring that way. It's just we've seen this pattern in Green Bay for however many years, 20 years, however long it's been with consistently bad special teams. Like, I don't know how much the special teams coach is going to matter. Maybe it matters and that he can improve them a little bit, but I'm not going to sit here and be like, yeah, they're going to be a top 5 or a top 10 unit. Like, no way. Like, that to me is far beyond expectations, but maybe he can make some kind of improvement here. But I think it's really going to come down to like, does the organization prioritize special teams more? And do they give him a return guy?
Well, I think again, let's take the optimistic side here. So one scenario is the way Bisaccia left, and again, let's grant him that he is as respected as we hear that he is as a coach. The way that he left gets their attention to say, dang, well, maybe we do need to look in the mirror a little bit and do some self-reflection on what the issue is. It's even hard for me to entertain that because you got to put all the clues together. We're mad as fans how this season went in 2025 now. I was about to say 2024. We're mad about how it went because of culture, right? There is it's seemingly a culture of not accountability, right? Or lacking accountability, not finishing, sort of taking letting your guard down, taking your foot off the gas. Those things are cultural. Like the attitude is cultural. And people constantly reinforce that he contributed to the culture, Bisaccia. And so I can't let go of that. It's hard for me to let go of that. But if I can let go of that, then yeah, maybe it's okay. This guy was supposed to be the best. We thought we had him still. Like we believe he's the best. We got issues. We'll figure it out. It'll be fine. But maybe he went out with like some less than good feelings and got their attention to be like, hey, this is an issue. Okay, maybe we need to do a little bit of inventory here. So that would be my best, like, this could change, right? Like my best idea for how this could change, because otherwise nothing's changed, right? Like Ed Policy being the president doesn't change special teams, right? So going from Mark Murphy to Ed Policy, that's not going to change anything. We saw that. You still have the same GM, you still have the same head coach, you still have, that's intact. Now you don't have the special teams coordinator. So maybe they are just on a really poor string of hiring at the position. And all of a sudden, Accord's going to come along, someone who was in the building with one of the greatest coaches of all time. And maybe he does have some wisdom to impart. That's possible. But it is hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine because it feels like an organizational issue, and you can't really put your finger on it because we from outside of the building don't have visibility to what the issue is. So I don't know. I guess it's a little. This is where we end up at this lukewarm point where it's like, well, I don't know what to think. Like it's different. I didn't want Rich Bisaccia back, right? Most fans agree. But I don't know how to be excited about the hire except for what I just laid out. He was around a great coach. He did get some results, right? Not consistently, but he did get some results. So I don't know. It's tough, man. But at the same time, the players got to play. There's that aspect of it too. And last year, I can see how the GM went into the season thinking we have enough assets. Somebody will figure out the return game. And that didn't pan out. And that may not be the GM's fault. There may be some bad evaluations that took place on the field. I don't know. McCall Hardman seemed like one that they brought in as a returner. You certainly still had Keyshawn Nixon, who, even though he said he wasn't going to be returned, it's like he's an all-pro at the position. He's in the building. You got guys at receiver who were pretty good at the job. Dobbs didn't do a terrible job. Reed, had he been, he'd be pretty good at the job, I think. But you got to keep him healthy. So the GM gets another chance this offseason to prioritize somebody who could be a returner, and there are several candidates for that in the draft. I know Caden Wetjen out of Iowa is one of the real popular options. But and let me just say, I was at the Shrine Bowl, and he had a really nice performance there. I don't get it. I mean, and I'm not denying the guy. The guy is fantastic at what he does. I don't understand how. I don't understand. Like, he's not. We see him at the combine. He's a good athlete. He's not, the Calvin Johnson athlete, right? Watching him in person, and he did have a really good return in the Shrine Bowl. The guy has vision. He's just got vision. That's really all I can narrow it down to, because it's not like he's Dante Hall out there with moves, Devin Hester with just that elite acceleration and getting out of there. Like, he's a good athlete. He's fast. He does have good acceleration. He's not the fastest. He's not going to have the highest acceleration, but dude can return, man. Like, it's I got to believe it's a vision thing, because what he does, and you go back, if you guys haven't watched Caden Wetjen's film, his returns that he's got at Iowa, they're incredible, man. You're just like, good Lord, dude just like took off. And so he's one that's, I know, a very popular option. I don't think personally the Packers will end up going for him, because I think whoever you get as a returner has to be good at another position. And not to say he's not good, he's not making the team at receiver. So that's just being honest. It's not going to happen. So you need somebody who's either going to make the team as a DB or receiver, most likely, maybe a running back. And that's just what they look for, right? They look for the versatility. They want to maximize their roster spots. That's the way to do it. If you're going to dedicate a roster spot to a returner, they look at that as kind of a waste, because there's so many plays that guy's impacting in a game.
Yeah, they haven't done it in a while. Like, you have to play somewhere else. So do they invest in that? Or is that somebody, like, they draft the receiver they like, and he can also do that? Like, they tried to force it on. Yeah, they tried to force it on Golden. They tried to force it on Savion Williams. I mean, Savion Williams might end up being a good kick returner. I think there were some flashes there. He just got hurt.
Think Golden could too, as fast as he is, but I don't think he wants to.
he didn't look good there at punt return.
I don't think he wants to, man, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and like Reed got hurt week 2, and he didn't come back until late in the season, so maybe he would have factored into it. But even his career, like up to that point as a returner, it was like he was pretty secure with his decision making, catching the ball, but he didn't really give you a whole lot in returns.
Right.
Maybe they just figure, hey, we'll just take whatever he gives us. I don't know, but it needs to be a bigger priority. And I'm hoping the special teams coach can improve them. Fresh ideas, fresh scheme. Don't forget too, like, maybe a factor too is there's been a lot of changes to, like, the kickoff rule the last few years in the NFL. Maybe Bisaccia just took him too long to adapt to some of that stuff. I don't know. He's
That's
kind of old school.
possible.
Like maybe he's not on the cutting edge of some of it. Maybe that factored into it. I don't know. Just throwing it out there. But maybe Accord can give you that. Bisaccia was never a guy that really fake kicks for them, which, yeah, I'm not saying to fake them all the time, especially when you have a poor special teams. You don't want to screw up any more than you already are. But maybe that's something he can bring. But
Well, hold on though. Hold on. Stop there for a second. Let's open that up real quick. That to me might be a little bit of an indictment on Bisaccia. And you're going to get into what comes first, chicken or the egg kind of thing. It's like, well, you don't have good special teams, so you don't want to do risky things. But do you have bad special teams because you're not trying to incorporate deception and forcing your opponent to maybe have to be prepared for certain things, just in case? I mean, case in point, Sean Payton in the Super Bowl against the Colts, with the onside kick coming out of halftime.
Sure.
My goodness, dude, like what a move. What a chess move. Like just people knowing you could do that forces them to respect it or to guess. And like you got to be prepared for it. So then you might go away from another strategy. So I wonder how much of that is an issue. And I wonder how much maybe he fought them on that. Right. And so Chris, the casual in, our friend here, guaranteed Rich had no handle on new rules. I'm with that. Like I really, I think I could believe that. I also think that he seems to me like a guy that believes it doesn't matter what you do. Get the guys in there; they'll take care of business, right? Like line up and kick the field goal, right? Like it's not like let's not think about this. Let's just do your job, right? And to some extent, okay, fine. But on the other hand, when you are the reason we're losing games, you got to fix it, man. You can't just sit there and like toss another effort at it. Like open it up and fix it. Like look at it. What's the deal here? Did you not know what to do? Are you ill-equipped on what your responsibility is? Like what's the problem? And it just felt like there was never any of that. So, that could be it. You get a guy, he's younger. He's, hopefully a little bit more willing to adapt to new rules. But I think to me, you need to have deception incorporated into your game in order to force your opponent to respect you.
That's a good point. And I think they were extremely conservative, like overly conservative with special teams. You never saw anything different or new or cutting edge with them. It was kind of reactionary to everything that the opponents were doing to them. So you hope with a new coach that you can have them better prepared, number one. And maybe just like teaching the little details and the fundamentals, because I think a lot of that led to why they took so many penalties on special teams, right? Like coach your guys up, get them prepared, have them more honed in on the details that they should have to play those positions on special teams. So you can cut down on the penalties. You can cut down on the mistakes that lead to block kicks and stuff like that. Yeah. Maybe he can bring that. And, he certainly came from an environment in New England where they were big on fundamentals and the details of everything. So hopefully that rubbed off. And like, I think the biggest improvement on special teams will be, one, if McManus can make his kicks, and two, if they can get something out of the return games, especially the punt returns. But if they can get something out of the return games and their kicker makes the kicks he should make, that's going to improve you right there. And that's kind of almost like take whoever the coach is, that's going to help. And then add a new coach on top of that. And potentially, yeah, you can see an improvement in special teams. But I guess I'm at the point where I'll believe it when I see it with Packers special teams.
That's where I think most of us have to be. You'll believe it when you see it, because I mean, when Bisaccia came in, again, he comes in with the reputation of being one of the better special teams coaches in the league. He, interim head coach for the Raiders in that whole disaster situation, and actually gets them into the playoffs. And, so it seems like he's a good coach. It seems like he's done some good things. There's a lot of respect for him around the league. And you just got to wonder what the heck happened in Green Bay and why. And, it's too easy for fans to blame it on Rich. And I don't even want to sound like I'm defending the guy, but we've got to leave room for possibility that there were issues beyond Rich's control or influence. but yeah, so we'll see what Aker can bring, man. Or Ackard. We'll see what he can bring and hope for the best. But yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. And I guess I hope that the front office will. I don't know. I don't even know if I want them to prioritize special teams, but I want them to maybe prioritize special teams sometimes. Like if there is a guy that's there who he's a good receiver or good DB, also has the potential to be a great returner. Yeah, like let's value that, right? Let's not just see him as a receiver or DB. Let's add that return potential on top there, and bring that guy in. Like there's plenty of athletes out there, guys at the combine that ran sub 4.40s. You need to be fast if you're going to be a returner, but yeah, I mean, it's something. And that's again where I come back to Wetjen. It's Caden Wetjen. He looks like a phenomenal returner, and it might be one of those guys that just makes you regret your criteria, because I just don't think that he's on their board because he is a returner, right? And he could be a receiver for another team, but the Packers are deep at receiver, man. They just don't have room for a guy like that, I don't think. And I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong. Maybe Matt LaFleur is looking at that guy saying, hey, I can use him. And, he'll work a lot like, Jaden Reed on the other side. I could be totally wrong about that. Doesn't seem like it, right? It just doesn't seem like it from this perspective. But there are other guys that are return guys. Xavion Thomas is another one out of LSU. He's a good returner. Not he's not a real high prospect in the draft. I think he's probably day 3 guy. He's fast. I think he ran a 4.28 or something like that at the combine. With I want to say like a 1.49 10-yard split, which is incredibly fast acceleration. There's a few of them though, and he was a good returner. He's kind of an average receiver. It's possible that you could get your special teams emphasis as much as you'll ever get it from the front office this season or this offseason, because you might get a kicker drafted too. I've said that. I'm going to continue to drip that out there, guys. It could happen. You better brace yourselves for it. But I'll tell you what, I'm a big Trey Smack fan, man. Trey Smack out of Florida. I got to interview him at the Shrine Bowl. Big fan. I think he's got a good head on his shoulders, got the right mentality for a kicker. He's talented. He kind of looks for those crunch time situations. He likes to get in there with, when the pressure's on. So you might see it. Just brace yourselves for it. Yeah. So I don't know. Let's jump into the combine though. Let's talk about some of these dudes that were out there showing off this past week, all their athleticism and in their glory. So Tim, I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you have a guy that jumped off the screen to you?
Yeah, and I'll kind of tie it into what Gutekunst had said before the workouts in his interviews there at the combine, because he was asked like, what positions do you need competition at? And of course, like I think his original answer was, well, we want competition everywhere. And they were like, well,
of course,
what specific positions? And the two he mentioned were cornerback. Okay, we all know that. The other one I thought was kind of interesting. He mentioned linebacker, inside linebacker. So are they playing some 3-4 this year? But that's another topic. So he mentioned cornerback and linebacker specifically. So that kind of jumped out to me. We all know about cornerback. I think everybody who's following the Packers this offseason, free agency and the draft is looking at corners.
Yeah.
Linebackers, a position I fully expect them to make additions to. I think they're going to draft somebody. I don't know if it'll be an early pick or not, but just numbers wise, they're going to need more linebackers, especially if Quay Walker walks away, which it looks like he's going to. He's going to get paid probably a lot more than they want to pay him, and I'm fine with that. But then you're left with McDuffie, Cooper, and Hopper. You need more guys. You don't know what Hopper is at this point in his career. He's 2 years in, and he hasn't played much. Positive signs last summer. You look good. Improvements from 24 to 25 in training camp. Could see a big jump with him, but then he never really got on the field. When he did at the end of the year for that Vikings game, which was kind of a throwaway, but he didn't play good. But the other times, like he came in the playoff game, had an interception against the Bears. We kind of forget about that. But you don't know what he is. I'm not comfortable if McDuffie's an every down linebacker, but he might have to be. So they need linebackers. We know they need corners. I'll get the corners, but there were some linebackers who really stood out, like tested off the charts that were eye-opening to me at least. So the one is the kid from Cincinnati, Jake Golday, 937 RAS score. Knew he was a good player, didn't know he was that good of an athlete. Anthony Hill from Texas. He kind of looking at him and seeing some clips of him, he looks like Edgerrin Cooper. Like that's who he reminds me of. Now I don't know if he can play Mike linebacker, but maybe he's an outside guy, and you have him and Cooper, and your Mike is McDuffie. But Anthony Hill looks really good. Wouldn't surprise me at all if he's the pick at 52. I think he's got Packer type linebacker written all over him. And then another one who stood out, and he had a great senior season at Texas Tech. He was one of the best defensive players in all of college football. Didn't realize he was the athlete that he is. Jacob Rodriguez from Texas Tech he had a great combine. Like,
I'll tell you what. Last week, our buddy, I think it was Chris, somebody asked us last week, who do you want at 52? I'm changing my answer to Jacob Rodriguez. I want Jacob Rodriguez at 52.
I mean, he's if you just watch him at Texas Tech, he was awesome. He was incredible. Like, he was, like I said, one of the best defensive football
instincts
players.
Off the charts.
Yeah, and he made plays, and it was almost like one of those, okay, yeah, he's good, but he's an off-ball linebacker, and, how athletic really is he? And he goes to the combine, and his RAS was 9.52. He's athletic, right? Like, and he's makes all those
in
plays.
The bubble of consideration.
Right, and everybody says he's a smart football player. He's got the IQ that you want there. Yeah, he was a guy who wasn't really looking at thinking because you see some of these college guys, and linebackers been one of those positions where like they're real productive in college and they get these great stats, and then they get to the NFL and you're like, yeah, they don't move as quick. Like, they might be smart, but then it's a whole step up, athletic wise and instinct wise and all that in the NFL. Rodriguez might be one of those guys who is able to take that next step and still be really good in the NFL. So that was his workout. It was surprising to me that he was as good as he was. Plus, you add the production at Texas Tech. So another one was Jack Kelly, the linebacker from BYU too. So yeah, linebackers, those ones I mentioned, because I think it's a sneaky need, and I wouldn't be surprised if at 52 they take a linebacker. And I know some people will be upset about that, but if you look at where their roster's headed, if they are going to play more 3-4, which we don't know, I still think they're going to be. I mean, they're going to be nickel mostly. That's what everybody is. Base, we'll see, because Gannon's got a history in both 3-4, 4-3. You need numbers, and I don't know if McDuffie's going to fit enough for this defense, right? The type of defense they want to play. They might want more athleticism there, and I'm fine with that. So I think not linebackers, sneaky need, and then we all want corners. We all think they need corners. They absolutely do. And I think it was a pretty good combine for day 2 cornerbacks. Like, there's some guys that won't be there that are going to be round 1 guys, but I think there's guys that are going to be available. They're going to have their pick of some cornerbacks who can come in and help them on day 1. Everybody, or not everybody, but I've seen Chris Johnson mocked to them a ton, the cornerback from San Diego State. He had a good weekend. Dalen Everett from Georgia really did. And I saw some clips of him. I like him. I really like him. Takario Davis from Washington had a good workout. The other cornerback, Prysock from Washington as well, had a good workout. So I think there's some depth there at cornerback, much more than we saw last year in the draft. They're going to be able to get corners. And I think this, solidified their workout numbers and what we saw now. Unfortunately, some guys didn't do the full slate of workouts. Some didn't run a 40, or some ran a 40, but they didn't do 3-cone and short shuttle. And then there was that group of guys who were kind of like, they're 188 pounds and the Packers like them at 190. So like, do they stretch it? Did they lose some weight so they could run faster? Like you get those questionable ones too, that you don't know how the Packers are going to view them. Like, I can't see them, if they really like somebody, but he weighed 188 pounds, I can't see him be like, well, we're not going to take. I think they would say, like, we're taking them, whatever. But there are some guys that are like right there on that cutoff line for them. So that's going to be interesting how they view him. But I think there's better cornerback depth. I think there's going to be cornerback depth for him on day 2 into day 3. And then, like I said, with the linebackers, impressed with some of those guys. Like, Sonny Styles out of Ohio State is a friggin' alien. That workout that he had was incredible.
Unreal. Megatron of the defense. Defensive Megatron. That's what he is. Unreal.
It's the numbers you put up. It's unbelievable. And he should just, I know they got a pro day, but like he should just show up and like wave his hand and say, I'll see it on the draft. Whoever's picking me. Like
he's one of those
great
guys
player in college, and then
that we were talking about earlier, and we're saying like it's going to take somebody who truly benefited from their workout at the combine to change that trend. That could be one of them. Like, seriously, tell him to sit down the rest of the offseason. Just sit down, dude.
Arvell Reese, too, his teammate, who he's an edge rusher, he's a linebacker, whatever you want to call him, just put him on the field. Like they had both of those guys.
Plays defense.
Yeah, he plays defense. Like he's going to be in the backfield, like whatever you want to call him. Like those guys, like incredible. But I think some of the other linebackers that I mentioned had really good workouts and should definitely be on the radar for the Packers. So like linebacker, cornerback. I don't want to go through everybody because
sure,
but those positions stood out because once Goody said what he said about needing depth there, caught my attention. So those were the positions I really saw and focused on.
Well, I'll sprinkle some attention in another area where I think a lot of people still believe there is at least a little bit of a need. You need to add at least one body on the defensive line, and probably a couple on the interior offensive line. And I would say the news for both of those positions looks a lot like the cornerback position. That you have good depth at both of those areas. If they at 52 take interior O-line, D-line, linebacker, corner, you win. It doesn't really matter. Those 4 groups, there will be really, really good value available at 52. And I hear you, R. Showers, you're over here. I pray we trade back for 52. I hear that. I also don't know about that. I think, because again, you don't have your first round pick. So the 52 is your first pick. You really need to land that. And so if you trade back, I guess it depends on what does it look like. Are you trading back and you getting a couple extra shots in the 3rd round? Is that what we want? Because it seems like Tucker Kraft is like the only one in the 3rd round we've been able to draft in the past 20 years that's worth a darn. So I don't know if that's what we want, but that's where to me it would come down to like, where are you trading back and what for? Because if you're trading back for like a 4th and a 6th, I think I'm out on that. Right. I don't have like the value chart in front of me. But at 52, there will be a difference maker available. Because like I'm saying, it's not just one position where you'll have some good value available. There's value at 4 positions of need for the Packers at 52. So with that abundance of value available, maybe you trade back into the 60s. Maybe you go back 10 spots where you're like, look, we'll go back 10 spots. We'll gain a little bit of value. And we're guaranteed at least a couple of these guys that we're happy with will still be there. That scenario totally makes sense. But I think what it really has to be is that once you're at 52, and I think they're good at this. They know who their guys are, or who their guy, if it's just a guy. They know who that is. They've got that target up there, and they know what they've got to do to get that position. And so, if they can get that person in the 60s or in the 70s and still gain some value in exchange, I think they'll do it. I don't think there's really even a question. I think they will do it. I don't know that anything would stop them except maybe not finding a good partner.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like I'm more inclined for them to stay there at 52 and make their pick there. But then if they want to trade back in the 3rd round, 4th round, sure, I'm on board with that. Like, and if they trade back at 52, okay, but don't go back too far. Like make that trade in that range, the 52 to 62 range, whatever. And then if you want to make trades and acquire extra picks, I'm all for that. For that in years where they have a 1st round pick, like the more cracks you get, the more lottery tickets, take it, because like you need those, anybody's hit rate isn't that high for the draft. So like the more chances you get, take it. but I'm fine if they stay there at 52 and make a pick. If you're going to trade back, I wouldn't go very far to do that. And I'm glad you brought up offensive line, because the more I've thought about it, I'm now at the point where I think offensive line is their biggest need position this offseason. Like, need to shore up. Like, they need corners and they need defensive linemen. Completely agree with that. But like, shore up the offensive line. And I think there's some guys, like, we got to see Morgan at left tackle. We got to see Belton at right guard. So you do have some internal guys there. But Banks had a bad first year. There's a hole at center, whoever that turns out to be. I think there needs to be competition, at least for Belton. And I think you need depth. I think everything flows on your offense from the offensive line, and you need to improve it and get it back to a much higher level than what it's been, certainly in 25 and even going back to 24, 23. Like, you got to improve it. And I think that will improve not only your offense, but like, if your offense flowing and putting up the points and being at their optimal level, will improve the defense and help the defense so much. Like, not saying cornerback's not a need, because it absolutely is, and defensive tackle, edge rusher, linebacker, like, they're all needs, but I really worry about the offensive line. So I think there's, like you were saying, I think there's some guys there. And the question will be too, is like, they love to take college left tackles and make them guards eventually. Like, will they actually see some interior guys this year and take them to play interior positions? Because I think there's some interior offensive linemen, guards, and centers in college that, like, take them, right? Like, don't always worry about, because they love to take the tackles and convert them inside. Like, maybe this is the year to just look at it and be like, this guy's a guard, we're going to take him to play guard and roll with it from there.
Or center. Yeah.
Or center.
No, I mean, I feel the exact same way. And the same way that I'm critical of, accountability and self-reflection of the players and the coaches and their process there, we've got to look back at the front office and go, look, man, I get it. You got a criteria. You got your blackjack rules, right? Like, you play your blackjack rules, you stick to them, you win two out of 3 times, right? Or I think it's something like that. You're going to have that one loss every now and then, but you stick to the rules and you win, throughout the game. I can respect all that. Every now and then you got to look at the situation and go, okay, now our rules may not be the best applied here. Right. And we saw that with the Creed Humphreys thing, right? So Creed Humphreys seemed like it's like, why wouldn't you take him? And then you go off and you get Myers, and it's like, all right, but in this case, these guys, you got to look at it and go, all right, we could have done better there. We should have gone off, and you got the center and Myers, but at the same time, like, to your point, they're doing too much of this tackle to guard conversion, and you're overlooking the guys who don't fit your criteria, but also might be awesome in the interior, and so yeah, I think like the center out of Kansas State, Hecht, I think his name is Hecht.
Yeah,
he's one that you look at and you're like, he doesn't jump off athletically, but he's a center, man. Like, he's that guy. Like, you just he looks like he's got it built into him, right? It's like, he knows his job, he loves his job. That's the job he wants. That's the kind of guy you want. And then if you need to, we'll get into free agency. You got Tyler Biadasz just getting cut off.
Glad you mentioned that.
We'll get to that in here in a minute. But so there might be some options outside of the draft to address those more specific needs. The other thing, I gotta believe that Banks isn't that bad, right? Like, everybody's entitled, I think, to a bad season. I gotta hope he can bounce back and be better than he was, right? And I think Goot's doing the same thing. But if not, you got to cut bait, man. You got to get out of that contract, be done with it. But you can't do it after just 1 year. Whatever the circumstances were, and inside of the building, they might have more visibility to that than we do. A guy like that, you gave him a big contract, you gotta give him more than a year. So I'm with you on, it's a need. I don't know if it's the biggest need, because I'm also projecting that the guys they have get better. And I see Belton graded in the 40s. I see you there, Chris.
He's
a rookie. I gotta believe he will get better, and Morgan's going to settle in at his position. You got to believe that gets better. Zach Tom comes back as healthy, that gets better. Like there's areas in this O-line that you got to believe can get better. And you got to also trust that they're definitely going to add bodies. It's not, they're not going to go this offseason without adding bodies to the O-line room. It's going to happen. So whether they sign free agents or draft guys, it'll happen. But to your point, Tim, this draft has a lot of those natural interior lineman guys. And I just, I think it would be a mistake to pass on that. You saw a few of them last year, like a Gray Zabel, Super Bowl champion now. There's several guys out there that are those like classic interior guys, and the Packers would just prefer the versatility. And I think it's because they look at it like, well, if somebody gets hurt and we need this guy to go play tackle, he can. And it's like, but that's planning to fail. And let's not do that. That's kind of the way I see that. I was like, don't plan to fail. Plan to have your best 5 out there, right? And if you need a backup tackle, have a backup tackle. Don't need your center to go to play tackle. Like that's not the plan. We need to stop thinking that that's the plan. But all that said, I got to give some shout out to the guy that we put on the thumbnail, man. Like I've been trying to get my way back around over here to Eli Stowers, dude. Like holy crap. And
yeah,
I'm not even mentioning Sadiq because he's gonna be gone. He's not on the Packers radar. Guy's a freak. Same thing with like Sonny Styles, like freak, total freak, awesome performance, great. He's not gonna be in the Packers universe, so don't worry about it. But Eli Stowers, man, this is a guy that if he's around at 52, I would not be surprised if they grabbed him. Now, like again, we're talking about the offense and what can you add to it. A tight end definitely counts as part of the O-line, right? He's a blocker. But the weapon that this guy could be, oh my goodness, dude, like putting this guy across from Tucker Kraft, him and Tucker Kraft on the field at the same time with the guys you have at receiver. Like I just envision Christian Watson on one side, Matthew Golden on the other, just giving the DBs nightmares down the deep part of the field. And then you got Tucker Kraft, who is just going to beat the hell out of you after he catches the ball. And then you got Stowers, who is going to out jump everybody. That's your red zone. Like that's your guy right there. That is your missing piece for this offense. To struggle in the red zone. Josh Jacobs did okay getting him in, he had a lot of good red zone touchdowns. This is your red zone ace in the hole, man. 6'4", 240, jumping with a 45.5-inch vert. Oh my God, bro. Oh, that is crazy.
Yeah, and there were some tight ends that stood out too, and I think it's another position that like they very well might look at a year ahead like they do and be surprised if they take one. Don't be surprised if they take one early, I guess I should say.
Don't be mad about it either. If
right,
you add Eli Stowers to this offense, you get very excited right now.
Yeah, and Tucker Kraft's going in last year's contract, and I fully expect they'll get an extension done with him. They'd be nuts not to. So count on him, but like it's not a sure thing yet. Musgrave's going into last year, his contract. He's not coming back. Like we've seen enough from Musgrave to know what he is. And then after that, there's nobody, right? Like Fitzpatrick was on the team, tore his Achilles late in the year. He's a free agent now. He's nothing more than a third tight end, which not to knock him, but there's a ceiling there. Now you're coming off an Achilles, so he very well might not be back in Green Bay. So yeah, they're gonna have to take a tight end at some point to develop. And Stowers was one of them. Stowers, the kid out of Stanford, who I never even heard of, Sam Roush, 994 RAS score. He's 267 pounds, right? And with incredible athletic, he can block, right? Like Stanford's offense, horrible, right? So we don't really know what he can do in the passing game, but 267, ran a 4.7, 40,
4.7,
vertical of 38.5.
Yes.
Like just 994 RAS. I'll say it again at 267 pounds for a tight end. And I think LaFleur is going to want a tight end who can block. Like, yeah, if you can catch the ball, awesome. Get down the field, do that. Like, great. You want the whole package. But I think number one, they're going to want somebody that can show that they can block, and Roush can do that. So, like, he was one that stood out. The kid from Houston, Tanner Kazoo, was another one. You mentioned Stowers, but like, yeah, there's some athletes there at tight end, and maybe day two, certainly by day three, they're taking a tight end at some point in this draft.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I mean, there's some good athletes available, and tight end's a position where you don't need a guy that's just this whole package, right? Like if a guy has a few tools that are valuable to you, take him. That's your guy. Take him. And that's the beauty of this offense. They don't need a guy who is going to be the number one all around, like do it all tight end one type guy. They need a guy who is just going to be a nightmare for the defense when they're busy covering everybody else. And that's what Stowers to me looks like. He looks like kind of like a really fun H-back type almost, where you could do a lot of things with him in the backfield if you needed to. So yeah, I got really excited about his athleticism, just massive explosion. And just to give you guys like a comparison, right? So I'm looking at the list here. So RJ Maryland is the other tight end that ran a 4.51 40. Stowers ran a 4.51. Similar guys, both 6'4", about 235, 240, something like that. Maryland had a 33-inch vertical. That's a foot different, right? Like that is 12 inches.
Wow.
That's 12 inches. Think about that, man. Like that is 12 inches that Stowers has on this guy. That is nuts. That in a game of inches, that is insane. And he's got a foot on his broad jump too. So it's just like these are guys that are in the same class, similar build, similar athlete, same position, and Stowers has a foot on this guy when he's jumping. That is insane. That is really, it's hard for me to imagine. I mean, anyway, so yeah, just when we talk about freak athletes, gyms, guys that are there, it's not necessarily always going to be at the position that we want. It's not like there's going to be the freak cornerback available there at 52 or the freak receiver available. But if you can get a freak tight end at 52, that's fun, man. That's good stuff right there. And
Fun piece.
And there's like I said, there's a lot of value across positions at the O-line, interior O-line, D-line. So yeah, if you guys haven't, dive into the combine results.
Yeah,
lots of fun there.
Before we move on, I just want to shout you out because one of your guys from last week who you're looking forward to seeing, Dennis Sutton.
He had a good day.
Yeah, 996 RAS.
He had a good day, man.
He's almost 6'6". He's 256. Plenty big enough to be an edge rusher in Green Bay. His arms are long enough. Ran a 4.63 for defensive end and vertical of 39.5, broad of 10.11. Yeah, he worked out like a freak. Excellent combine for Dennis Sutton. I think he'll probably, well, I shouldn't say he'll be there. I would think there's a strong possibility he's like a second round defensive end, maybe even third round. But I think this workout probably shot him up a little bit. I don't think he's a first round guy, but you never know because edge rushers come off the board quick and it's a premium position. But yeah, he put up some crazy numbers. So yeah, you mentioned him last week. He was a guy on your radar that you really liked. He backed it up at the combine. He would look really nice across from Micah Parsons.
Absolutely. That's a good value pick that I think they could get. Edges of positions, it's got some depth in this draft, right? I don't want to just like hype up every position that's got depth, but there's more depth in this draft than I saw last year. Last year, there was depth at certain positions and other positions were really like corner was really sparse last year. And this year, nothing jumps out at me as being a sparse position, where it's not a good year for maybe quarterback. Actually, it might not be the year to need a quarterback.
Good.
Although Taylon Green, talking about freaks, that dude, and I got to shout him out because I got to see that kid as a freshman in high school here, just down the road in DFW at Louisville High School. Shout out to his offensive coordinator there at Louisville High School, Nick Ola. My dude played at UW Oshkosh with him. He's having a lot of great success down here as a high school football coach. But Taylon Green, product of Louisville High School, first went to Boise State, then at Arkansas. And I don't know if he took it from Anthony Richardson, but I think he was close to being the most athletic quarterback ever to test at the combine. He was like right there with Anthony Richardson. So
wow. Okay.
Something to look at. And I've seen some people mock him to the Packers in later rounds, so that is an interesting thought. Because I know that a lot of people are also talking about the potential to trade for Anthony Richardson as sort of like the Malik Willis project replacement. But if they're looking for that backup, the QB2, and they want someone athletic, Taylor Green is going to be a tough one to pass up if he's available there on day 3. And again, knowing how not many quarterbacks there are in this class, he may not make it to day 3. He might be a day 2 kind of guy that I don't know if because like as a thrower, I don't know if he's ready. I don't know if he's there. He's incredibly talented. I could see that, but quarterback's a tough one, man. It's tough to predict. I mean, there's a reason these teams struggle to figure it out. There's a reason the Bears have been so bad at finding a good quarterback. It's tough. It's tough to find a good quarterback. So some interesting options available for sure. Again, talking about freak athletes. And then let's see here. I don't know. We can't cover the whole combine, so maybe we should draw our line there.
We'll get to them as we get to our positional
but I guess
previews.
The overarching point is, if you are some reason worried that the Packers don't have a first-round pick, so all is lost, it's just not. It's not. There's going to be really good value there at 52 across positions of need. There's a very good possibility because of that they could trade back a few spots and gain some extra value. That's just, I think Gute's always looking to do that, it seems like. So, yeah, I mean, if anything, this combine should get Packers fans excited. You should be excited, and it's not an end-all be-all. It's not that necessarily the scouts and the GMs were totally shocked by everything here, although I think, again, there are some players that move up boards because of their results here, so that happens. It's probably not the common thing. But so let's touch briefly here on free agency, because we're starting to see some new names added to the free agent market. That's certainly an avenue for team building for the Packers. And they've said that they can go get guys. So it doesn't appear that they're looking at this like they're handcuffed by their salary cap. Our friend Ken Ingles, who's out there, the Packers salary cap whiz, he has said they have the moves available to open up cap and probably get at least one impact player, one kind of bigger free agent, maybe not top of the market type guy, but impact guy, starter, somebody who's maybe making a decent amount a year. So we can't totally ignore free agency like we did in the Ted Thompson era. Who's at the top of your free agent radar here? Are you following all the rumors, Tim, or do you just kind of roll your eyes at them?
No, I mean, I'm following some of it because a lot of it's just talk, especially coming out of the combine. There's all kinds of rumors because all the agents are there. Right. Most of the personnel guys are there. Then you get the reporters who are trying to all get the scoops on guys. And some of it's true. Some of it's just talk and nothing will happen with it. So I think as we get closer, I think next week will be good. We can kind of go through free agency a little deeper and like guys that we like, because there's going to be more players that are getting released, which, there was one that was released the other day that I think is really interesting. It would be a nice fit for the Packers. And it's not just because he went to Wisconsin. It's Tyler Biadasz, the center from the Commanders, who they cut. He's still just 28. Obviously, Packers could use a center. He's a pretty good center. I know there's some people are saying he had kind of a down year in 2025, and that might be the case. I didn't watch him or the Commanders very closely, so I don't want to say too much about it. But, I mean, they were a pretty bad offense. Their quarterback was hurt a lot. They ended up firing the offensive coordinator. So a lot of circumstances at play there. But he's been really durable. He was a solid player with Dallas before he went to the Commanders. And again, he's in that age range. They're not paying somebody that's 32, 33 years old. He'd be 28. I don't think he's going to break the bank and get this huge deal like Linderbaum's going to get from the Ravens or whoever ends up signing him. I think I think he'd come in right away and be a veteran presence. So it would be nice for Jordan Love, nice for that offensive line. And he wouldn't stop you from still taking a center in a draft, but a center that you can develop, to be your starter 2 years from now or something like that, where you wouldn't need to take him and plug him in right away. So I think Biadasz would make a lot of sense. That was one name that popped up that was just recently cut. There's been some other guys that have been cut that I don't think, Marshawn Lattimore's getting cut from the Commanders. No way.
Yeah, I think
He's been hurt.
outside of their criteria window.
Yeah, he's been hurt a ton, and when he's been on the field, he hasn't been very good. I mean, the Packers played him last year, and they were throwing on him the whole game, targeting him. He's not very good, and he's hurt a lot. No way. And I know Aaron Jones is going to be available, and it'd be, sentimental thing. It'd be great. He's older now, and he gets hurt, and they didn't want to pay him a couple years ago. I don't think they want to pay him again now. No offense to Aaron Jones. I think that ship has sailed. So, yeah, Bjadage was one. There's going to be other guys that are cut between now and when free agency starts. But like as we get closer and closer, you start seeing guys become available. It's not a very good pool, like a very good pool of free agents. And especially when you narrow it down for like the Packers, like guys that are under 30 and don't have a huge injury history. Not many of those guys out there. But there's definitely some guys that can help them. But Bjadish is one new addition who I really like, and I think would make a ton of sense for the Packers.
Yeah, another one. I'm with you on all those sentiments as far as those guys, and Kenny Clark is another one people have brought up about maybe they'll bring him back. I just don't see it. Not unless he doesn't have a market and he'll come back on a low contract. I think they would certainly like to have the player in the building and on the field. But if he's going to make any money at all, I don't think it's going to be in Green Bay. I think he'll probably have a market. It may not be a huge market, but I think he'll have a market, and he'll probably get a decent paycheck for a 1 or 2 year deal. One that caught my eye that was right alongside Aaron Jones was Javon Hargrave. Now, he did pretty well when he was playing underneath Gannon in Philly. So that could be one. And I was just trying to look up. I think he's still like a younger guy, right?
No, he's like 32, 33. Yeah, he's getting up there.
Okay. I was thinking he was sub 30.
No.
Yeah, 33. Okay. So maybe not. Never mind. They'll bend their criteria here and there. So you can't say never, but yeah, you're right. This free agency class is just kind of thin. It really is. And we may see more of it as guys get cut, their cap casualties and things like that with the league year coming up. And then you'll have the June 1st cuts and all that. So there might be some guys out there that eventually make sense for the Packers to check out. But right now, yeah, it seems like their primary team building channel is going to be the draft. Do you suspect any trades? Not in the draft necessarily, but just in general.
No, probably not. I mean, I think they're going to try to trade the guys who they're eventually cut. So like Elton Jenkins, Rashawn Gary, I think they're going to try to trade them if they can find or get anything for them. Ultimately, I don't think they will, and they'll probably just cut them. So, and as far as them acquiring somebody, I don't think so, because like they already lose that first round pick for the next 2 years. Like I don't see them giving up another pick. Maybe if it's a pick swap or if it's a player for player sort of thing. It's possible, but probably not. I think they will get a couple free agents, but yeah, like you said, I think primarily it's going to be through the draft. I think it's going to be, they're either going to see a player or two that they like, they're going to get in and get them and get out of free agency, or it's going to be one of those things where they kind of slow play it and like the top guys get crazy money, and then they're kind of in that middle, let's find the right fit sort of guy at the right price, like the middle tier free agency, and maybe they sign like 3 guys at that level to help them. But yeah, I think it's not a very good class, but I still think they're going to be somewhat active, but I don't think this is the year for like the big contracts, though. It seems like when they are active in free agency, it's usually like they're going out and they're getting McKinney and Jacobs and Zadarius Smith. They paid a ton of money to, and Preston, and even the guys Hobbs and Banks last year, they paid pretty good contracts too. So it seems like when they are in it, they're going top of the market guys. So maybe that still will be the case this year, but I don't know. I got a feeling it'll be kind of like that next level or next couple levels down that they go after.
Yeah, and it depends on the position because you don't need
Yeah.
those leader type guys everywhere. Um, Corner is certainly a place you could use a veteran. So again, we talked about the free agency class doesn't look great for corner. If you're gonna get a veteran corner, I think it would have to be through trade. I don't know what those circumstances would be, because good veteran corners typically aren't on the trade block. So, you know, I don't know what the trade block looks like, but I would think that you need to probably build through the draft in that position, which is not a bad thing because the draft, like we mentioned, is deep. It's got some good value. I think there's probably a couple of players the Packers at least will come away with in this draft at corner and hopefully change up that room quite a bit. But yeah, as far as free agency goes, I'd like the Biotish signing. I think that would be a good one. He had some good years in Dallas there. It's always cool when a Badger comes back to Green Bay, but doesn't happen as often as Packer fans and Badger fans would like. Even with JJ Watt, man, that was brutal to hear that he wanted to go back to Green Bay. They didn't even call him. It's just like, dang, man, y'all couldn't call him. All right. So our fan fantasies usually don't get fulfilled, but in this case, it does, I think, make a lot of sense. Money sense, player sense, team sense. So yeah, that I think could be a good move. And yeah, we'll see who else gets cut because sometimes linemen can be part of that. There could be some quality guys that end up on the street. And to your point, if you're gonna move on from a Rashawn Gary, and you first of all, if you're going to try to trade a Rashawn Gary, you're certainly not going to let anybody think that you're trying to move on from Rashawn Gary. So if you're the GM, it's very smart of you to say, yeah, we look forward to having him back next season. Thought he was a great player. You're trying to sell some goods here, man. You better talk well about them, right? You don't want to speak ill about the goods you're trying to sell. So that I do see as a potential because I think that there's enough front offices and teams out there that could they believe they could rehab Rashawn Gary's career. I just don't understand what the issue is. So, it's hard for me to speculate on that. He seemed like a guy who was on the up and up and just really fizzled out. And I don't know why. I don't understand it. It could be a coaching thing. I don't know. But I don't think they'll cut him. I don't think that would be a wild situation. That would surprise me. I think this league wants elite rushers, and they're everybody's out there to try to fix the guy that the team couldn't fix. So yeah, it seems like he would have a market. It may not be like a great market, you may not get great compensation for him, but I think he'll have a trade market. But it'll be interesting. That could be one of those situations where maybe there is a veteran corner out there that doesn't want to stay with the team, and that's a good player for player swap. There's that kind of possibility, but those are the things I'd be looking for as far as if you're hoping that the Packers fix the cornerback position this offseason. It just doesn't seem like it's going to happen through free agency. So hope for a trade, and certainly tune in for the draft because there's going to be a lot of opportunities to fix that position there. All right. Well, thank y'all for hanging out with us this week on the Pack Weekly Pod, part of PackersTalk.com network. Y'all, please, if you love the episode, spike that like button, but most importantly, jump over to YouTube, type in Packers Talk Network, hit search, find our channel, subscribe to the channel, and it helps us out a lot. We really love it. Love when you guys hang out with us. Appreciate you guys joining us in the comments every week. You guys really add a lot of color and some great info sometimes, man. You guys bring some good stuff in the comments, and always a little bit of fire going on in the comments, and gotta love that. But this is a passionate fan base, damn it, and we expect a Super Bowl in the near future. So get to it, Goot and company. But while we're waiting for them to figure it out, we're gonna figure it out for them. So come on back next week. We will begin digging into the draft prospect position by position, and next week I think we're gonna start with probably one of the lighter parts of the class with QBs and maybe a couple other positions on offense. So tune in if you are a fan of offense. Not offensive. because they're not offensive. I don't think any of them stink or anything. They're all pretty nice guys. If you're a fan of offense player draft prospects, join us next week on the Pack Weekly Pod. Love you guys. And of course, as always, go Pack.